Everybody, please put your hands together and be in the house as we welcome Anit Singh, Director HR, Procter and Gamble Health. With a beautiful round of cheer, let's also welcome Roopa, Kumar, founder and CEO, Purple Quarter. Of course, Roopa, happy to be greeting you back onto the stage. Let's also welcome Prasad, Rajappan, the founder and CEO, ZingHR. Let's also welcome Vijay Goyal, HR Head, Birla White, Ultratech, Cement. Let's welcome Nair, the Senior Associate Director, KPMG. Well, the strings of the conversation would be very finely held by Dr. Prasanth Nair, the CHRO from TVS Capital Funds. Please welcome Dr. Nair also with a good round of cheer. And I think it'll be really nice if our moderator can take up the center or whichever way you please to, but it was just a special request from our photographer that way. Thank you. We'll just hand over the mics as well very quickly. Oh, the mics are already placed, so you can make sure that you can use that and pick it up from the page. Thank you. Over to you.
Can I stand?
Absolutely, as you will.
Use that. Good evening. Good evening. Let's clap for the panel members. Chair. Fantastic. I know it's the last session for the day. And madam, I think you've done a great job in difficult circumstances. And this is my, way of getting some extra 5 minutes from you. Okay. Okay. Do you have time for the presentation? How much time do we have?
So the total is 45 minutes.
Total is 45 minutes?
Everything in that.
Fantastic. Okay. So let me just try to take you quickly through the presentation. Okay? And you can skip the first slide. Is there a...
Yeah, the clicker.
Where should I point? Okay. So I start with a premise that future of work is a very odd topic, because according to me, work doesn't have a future. And the work as we understand it, it definitely doesn't have a future. So we can talk more about it. And I'll tell you the reason why I think work as we define it, as we know it, doesn't have a future. One, because of the technology effect. Number two, because of the global economic scenario. And number three, because what we call the social dynamics. Okay? Can you see this, what's written there? It's a long thing. I'm not asking you to go through it. You know who wrote this? This is about a character called Bijli, just a nickname. And this is about the loss of German football team. Okay? It's a great poem written. Who wrote it? It's written by an AI tool called ChatGPT. So earlier the paradigm was that creative and artistic work cannot be done by technology. Now that has proved itself wrong here. Okay? And for those of you interested in technology, there is something called the Turing test. The Turing test the test says that at some point in time, the machines will start acting like human beings. Okay? And the race is on. And they say by 2030 or 2032, that will actually come through. So we're talking about technology really replacing human beings, not in cognitive, but even in artistic capability. What it means for organizations, we will discuss. So technology and the world economy, these two are driving things. And in interest of time, we talked about VUCA world. Increasingly, what the terminology that is being used is called BANI. The word BANI stands for brittle, anxious, non-linear, and incomprehensible. Brittle because the existing organization models are getting broken. Recently we had an RBI governor talking about, RBI deputy governor talking about how banks have not utilized the space given and payment gateways have actually taken over the bank function. The organization models are getting broken, and that's what brittle connotes. Anxious, I think a lot of talk about mental health, well-being and happiness. I don't want to get into that. Non-linear, quickly summarize, it's really about how leverage is becoming a key factor. And leverage, the earlier connotation of leverage was about scale. Today we know size is not scale. And the third and the last is incomprehensible. Incomprehensible, great example of incomprehensible is crypto. The world is yet to understand what is crypto and how do we manage crypto. So what does BANI do for organizations? And some of the data that we have, these are all data that I picked up. The average age of organizations in something like 2000 or 1990 was about 50 years. In 2030, the average age of organization will be about 5 years. The 91% of the managers are worried that employees aren't working. Okay? And people are thinking they're working even harder. 66% of the jobs that are currently there will not exist in 2030. 60% of the employees want to quit. These are some data that we have, okay? And in this context of data, what should HR do? Okay, HR can play 3 roles. HR can play the role of support, which is very important. I'm not saying it's not important. In a football match, you will find a lot of people sitting in the bench and actually coming and helping the players, when they're injured, keeping them fit, planning their schedule. This is all about business support. HR can play the role of business enabler, the role of a coach, or HR can play the role of a business driver. The Messis, the Neymars, the Thomas Müllers of the world, who actually kick the ball. I should mention Luka Modric as well, right? So what role does HR want to play? And that's going to be the topic that I want the panel to think about. Each role, the degree of decision making would change, of course, and the degree of spotlighting would also change. I asked the question sometime, when you are kicking a penalty, only the business driver, the person who is kicking, is under pressure. Everybody else under pressure, but the amount of pressure that that person undergoes at that point in time, do you talk about work-life balance there? That's what I call spotlighting. The entire world is looking at that person taking the kick. Can HR do that? So HR has got 3 roles to play in this context. In a context of BANI, when organizations are going through huge amount of change, do they play the role of business support? Do they play the role of business enabler? Or do they become a business driver? So with that, let me ask some questions to the audience. Right? So whom do I start with? Ladies first. No?
Sure, I don't mind.
So let me shift it a bit. Let me take one question from the audience. We've always seen that the panel members talking first, or we talking about questions. Let me just get one question from the audience. Anyone? Question from the audience at this point in time. Any questions at this point in time? Hello?
I think they're waiting for you to warm it up and then they'll join in. Then they'll join in, yeah.
Okay. So Sahil, what's your take? since you volunteered to make your voice felt in the audience, what's your take on what should be the role for HR in the present and the future context?
No, I think, thanks so much, Prashanth. Very, very typical of HR, right? Whenever you put your hand up for something, it always comes back tossing at you. So the fact that I made my voice heard, I get a chance to go first. But I think fundamentally, whether it's HR or any other sphere, one thing which is very, very prevalent and is going to stay into the future is the fact that you can't just be out there saying things are not working. And I'm broad basing it now at 35,000 feet. We'll obviously hit the runway soon. But many a times we've always been part of the problem. I think it's high time we start becoming part of the solution. And not necessarily we would have the right solution, but the mindset to go out there and co-create the best solution along with like-minded people, along with people who are experts in their own domain, along with fundamental skills of collaboration and bringing the best out of everybody, I think is very important. It's been way too long that we've lived in our silos. It's been way too long that the budget of finance and the budget of HR, just as an example, never tallies, right? It's high time that we've got technology center stage. We've got the best brains in the country, but somewhere the whole mindset, whether you call it ego.
So Sahil, just stopping you there,
Sure.
Should HR exist as a function?
Of course. But the
you're
difference
talking about
is,
breaking the silos, and then you're talking about existing as a function.
I'll tell you why. And the answer is very simple. If you give me 30 seconds.
Yeah, you have got exactly 30 seconds.
Exactly 30 seconds and the clock is in front of us. Every single human being has to have an HR mindset, which is a people mindset. Now, does that mean dissect HR? The answer is no. What it really means is people who are in the fraternity understand people a notch better than the rest. But does it mean that a line manager doesn't know how to deal with people? Doesn't work. Because the moment you become a people manager, you've got to know how to deal with people. But when you hit a crossroads, if you think that you'll be able to solve it yourself, then it's going to be stupidity because you have people out there who know it slightly better than you, and therefore go to them for advice.
Great. Thanks, Sahil. Can I come to Anit now? Anit, you've seen HR from your perspective, okay? The HR role is changing. How do you think employees are reacting to the changing role of HR? Are employees really appreciating the role that HR is playing or want to play? Yeah. So these are a bit unprepared questions. Sorry for putting you in a spot.
Sure. So to start with, I don't think anyone minds until the change is for good, right? And before I comment to your question, I would just want to make a remark to what you mentioned, right? HR, in my opinion, hasn't been really part of the problem. If that would have been the case, as a community, we have come till this place where it has evolved, right, from what used to be an admin function primarily, then probably just an IR function, personal relations, right? Being just a business support, now enabler, we are talking about business driver, right? So much of evolution has already happened. I do agree that sometimes we ourselves create problems for us, but yeah, in general, if we talk about HR has been one of the biggest driver of the business, and that has been one of the key source of growth for this community. Now, right? Now coming back to your question, sorry, I just thought of commenting on that.
I'm so tempted to rebut to that, but I'll hold my horses.
Sahil, I'll give you a chance. I'm tempted to say the world wants to know, nation wants to know, but just hold on. Yeah.
Yes. So now coming back to the question that, how is the role of HR changing and what do people expect from us? So see, business, coming back to what you mentioned earlier, people do expect us to provide the hygiene level of support. If there is a payroll issue, right? If the canteen, there's some issue in canteen, they do expect HR to support, right? But at the same time, if there is even a legal issue, right? Then also they expect an HR to come ahead and support. Even if there is at times a technology-related issue, then also they expect HR to step in and support, right? So the overall gamut of things which you see, right from housekeeping stuff to emerging technologies, whether it's AI, whether it's now blockchain. Now there are employees who are asking us question, can you pay us in crypto? Oh my God, that's altogether a different level, right? So the entire spectrum at which we need to operate, that's becoming really challenging for HR, right? And that's where I think the future of HR lies, that we understand each and every element of this spectrum and how we can support our employees, our organization to still grow. That is important.
Very, very nicely expressed, saying that the entire spectrum of responsibility that HR would have to manage is something which can be a challenge. Okay, on that note, can I ask Vijay? Vijay, how can HR leverage technology, okay, to actually deliver outcomes to the organization?
Sure. So, yeah, am I audible? Okay. So, in fact, before that, answering that question, I like to build on what Vinit has said. I think HR has moved on to a boundaryless HR, where there is no JD left for HR in true sense. While we make JDs for others, and we have people come to us to simplify their work, KRAs and gold sheets, but for HR, there is no one to really simplify, right from what you just mentioned about admin role to a very high-end, complicated problems in the organization in terms of culture. People expect HR to really have answer for it. And the way the role of HR has changed, especially for me, if I look at post the pandemic, I think things have been on a rapid fire mode. Every time there is a new problem that comes in terms of the way we manage hybrid workforce, and the people who are, especially I represent the sales organization, and which is Belovite, and I think many places we don't even have offices where actually people come report like how we used to have time and attendance, those kind of environment. But post-pandemic, the way technology has taken over, and those mundane things of processes where HR is to be really monitored on that, how do we track those old age processes, and then leads to a kind of performance and overall outcome. Technology, while it was there, but the adoption has become very fast. On a more so that HR actually got an access now to what really happens on a daily basis productivity. And probably this is the time when HR has earned the respect to sit in the calls of a sales or even the boardroom where the strategies and the business plans are being made. HR got an access to how is the sales plans are being made. And interestingly, now we don't have to rely on your 6-monthly review or annual appraisal to really decide what to do with that individual, whether we put him into a PIP or not, because of the technology. Now even HR has an access on a daily basis as to what is the score of an individual in terms of how the performance is happening, how is the run rate of a performance, and all that is actually counting. And just to tell you, even HR got involved in defining the market. Imagine, which was, at least I have never seen in my line HR role, that HR was being invited to define how do we share the work that was being defined in the universe of market that we have as a Belovite. So just to simplify, like we have around 75,000 retailers through which we do sales. How do we even redefine those mapping of those retailers to employees, and therefore how do we really see the category of ABC retail counters, and where we have a prospect of earning more, all those complicated stuff where HR actually got involved. This was not possible until 2 years back. So probably that is where I would say very simple, but very steady, step by step. HR is getting that respect, getting that share of voice, and also able to really do interventions that can add productivity and outcome.
Fantastic. I think the word boundaryless HR is very interesting. So, Roopa, my question to you is that you've seen from a founder, CEO perspective, how do you look at the role of HR and how technology can become a great enabler for HR in managing the workforce?
Well, First and foremost, I don't agree with some of the things that have been said. Because I think adoption for HR to have progressed to the level as much as startups, companies have progressed hasn't happened. We're still working in a framework, there are processes, still being called a support function. That itself is extremely insulting to the role and to the people sitting here itself. The question that I like to throw open to multiple HRs sitting in the room is, are you a support function? And if you're okay being called a support function, then your first slide which spoke about future, where work is not going to be like the way it is today, that will not correlate because HR hasn't upgraded. That's my version of how I look at it. Now, why that has happened is a twofold thing. One, because few of us are happy being called a support function. So I blame it not just on the other side, but also people are happy doing what they're doing. The other side is for not getting enough autonomy. Where it's very easily said that HR make this decision, but finally the decision's being taken by someone else. But the person who's actually inculcating or implementing the decision becomes the HR team. That is how I see of the twofold piece to respond to your first question as a person who's seeing it from a lens outside of the function.
So can I just pause here? I'll come back to you. I just want to do an audience poll here. So she said something very interesting. She said that partly it is HR themselves who are playing the role of a support. They're very happy playing the role of a support. And partly it is the environment or the CEO or the founder that is actually responsible for this. So to the audience, my question is, those who think HR themselves are to be blamed for playing the support, please sit down. And those who think that CEO and the founder is not giving them the space, please stand up. So let's see how many of them stand up and how many of them sit down. You can keep standing, sir. You are sitting and standing, sir. Okay. So there are 4 people in the audience, please sit down. 4 people in the audience who think that the CEO is not giving them the space. This is very interesting. An audience close to about 30, 35 maybe people. A significant majority of people think that HR themselves is very comfortable playing the role.
Which is not a bad thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Yeah. But are you going to upgrade yourself for the future that will unfold? Which we're talking about the Gen Zs. We had this chat while having coffee, right? Sure. So Gen Zs are not going to be operating in the environment that we are working right now. The millennials are working, right? Or Gen X also are working, or the boomers are working. It's not going to be in that format at all. It is going to be completely haphazard. There's going to be more uncertainty in the way that they want even the founder, or forget about any function, for anybody to behave. Right? So because you need to be collaborative with that kind of an audience. Gen Z wants you to collaborate, want you to ask them questions, want to partake in decisions. So are we prepared as an HR community there to handle that situation? I don't think so. Maybe in pockets, people are prepared. I wouldn't want to say that 100% adoption has not happened. But majorly, I don't see this specific community standing up for itself and saying, I am the enabler. I am the one who calls the shot. I am the driver. I'm the business driver. I'm telling you why the revenues have to be so much. These are the key metrics that we are looking at. I am not going to look at optimization because I value this. It does not come across at all, right? And that you don't need a CEO to give you that space. You create that space. But is one creating that space? That's a question.
The question that I always ask and I always tell people is that, are we preparing an organization for that kid who is in class 10 or class 12, who is completely into gadget, who can take his own decisions, who can make a choice about which friends to make, where to go, what to like, what to not like in a social media. So there are 2 worlds he or she is living in. One is a social world where he or she is the boss. The other is an organization wherein you put him a set of processes. And it's a very funny thing about policies. 90% of the people come to an organization for doing a good job. 10% of the people come to while away time. But policies are often made for the 10%, for the scoundrels, what I call, and we manage the 90% good people with a policy made for scoundrels. How will Gen Z even look at it will be an interesting question.
Yeah, that you've responded to your second question yourself, so I'm glad. So, so technology will evolve and will continuously evolve as we see every day it's evolving. It's upgraded so much. Is this community upgraded as much as technology is upgraded? Not really. I think there is a gap. There is a delta to cover. It'll be very interesting to see how people are going to cover the delta. The second bit that I would like to share is technology jargons are not enough for this community to cover. It is about understanding the business, whatever business that we partake in, are we fully aware of what the product that we are building out as this community, and can we, be a decision maker along with the other functions becomes most important. Rather than it being a tug of war between finance and HR, how lovely would it be if HR had a tug of war with product, with the person who's visualizing the entire thing. Yeah, so.
Thank you, Roopa. Prasad, my question to you is that you interact with HR people on a daily basis. You interact with the CEOs, CFOs, Chief Digital Officer. How much of that vision that a CEO has is actually shared and driven by the HR?
Thank you. I think we have been talking of the role of HR now coming in, understanding. I think my, again, perception, you asked a question whether HR function is going to remain, and Sahil said, I think HR as a function will remain, not as a department. HR will remain as a trait in each manager, and the so-called HR people role is to bring a combination of technology and finance into each manager and empower, and I would call HR is not human resource, it has to be human recognition. And if each one of us as human being start recognizing human and see what the assets are that are there. And I'm saying if you look at the reverse, if you see most of the successful HR managers are the managers who talk business, who understand finance. Like I was taking the last session also, I got HR managers talking, can I improve my EBITDA margins by 5.5, which is equal to 100 crores. So to answer your question, it's a great opportunity for HR people. And often, like Roopa was saying, people see we're not empowered. I got a suggestion to the people all sitting here, and as a human being, and I get questions from HR, we are not empowered. Budget finance ko milta hai ya sales ko milta hai. So my answer to them is, empowerment is like E is equal to MC square. Your empowerment is your motivation, into your commitment, into your collaborative way, how we work with other departments. Nobody has any right to give you empowerment. I repeat, empowerment is your motivation, into your commitment, and how you want to collaborate with other functions. So mind you friends, I think the empowerment HR is a time, like you said, has to go and take it. Don't wait for CEO or the board to give it. And especially after last couple of years, not just pandemic, last 5-6 years, HR has been seen as business drivers. And maybe if we can snatch it, tell me which department cuts across all the people in the company. Tell me one department which cuts across all the company is HR. HR now has to learn technology, has to learn finance and business. If you do, I can tell you a lot of future CEOs can come from this room. To answer your question, Doctor, people are now waking up. Good part is a lot of youngsters in the HR team, youngsters not big of age, people who understand technology. I call youngsters who understand technology as youngsters. It could be 50-year-old person, are now challenging and going to business and giving suggestions. So I see a positive trend. I'm very optimistic that this so-called herd is going to be part of the business. Like he was saying, he's not talking of product and talking to the dealers. Now, getting dealers trained is a part of business.
Absolutely.
As Roopa was saying, I want HR to challenge a product. So there is a lot of expectation coming from the so-called people who understand people.
Fantastic. Good. Very good. So does any one of the panel members want to rebut or add or challenge any other panel members? No? Sahil, you should do it. You usually do it. Come on. Any questions from the audience at this stage? A lot of provocative thoughts are there. So any questions from the audience?
Morning, Doctor. We had one question during the poll which I did. How many HR heads believe that they can become CEOs? Okay. And which means, I think only about 30% believe that they can be CEOs. And I can ask the same question. Do you believe that HR team sitting here can become CEOs?
How many how many people sitting here believe they can be CEOs? Raise your hand. Actually, stand up.
Stand up is better.
Stand up. Good. Very good. Good.
1.2% of the people. Good.
Good. Very good. Good. So,
Doctor, one question, ma'am. Are we victim of being typecast as HR? Is my question I'm asking to everyone. I don't have an answer. Are we all victims in this room of HR and HR tech as being typecast as HR? You can't do this. You can't become CEO. Are we a question I think we need to ask? I think I could.
Sahil, it's all yours.
No. So I've been very tempted, but I've just been holding back. But Prasad, I think fundamentally, let's go step by step, right? Number one, I may not want to be a CEO in the first place. I may want to be just an amazing HR head and a brilliant HR head, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? You never ask a finance guy, oh, will you become CEO? You never ask a marketing guy, will you become CEO? But this unsaid, unwritten, very, very unsaid thing which goes to say, can an HR guy become a CEO because does HR understand business? Let's flip the question for 30 seconds. Which CEO, when we have one person sitting right here, which CEO, which founder would not want HR on the table? If the guy is good, the lady is good, competent, contributing, value adding, the person's going to be really dumb in their head to say, you know what, don't come here and don't contribute. The question that we need to pause and reflect is, as much as we keep fighting for the seat on the table, do we really sustain that seat? And the ones who sustain, as you said, few and far in between, are doing brilliant for themselves. They actually are accountable for P&Ls, they are running businesses, and they're doing very well. But the question that we need to hit ourselves hard on the head and answer is, do we have what it takes to have ownership and accountability on PAT or EBITDA? And if we don't know what EBITDA or PAT is and we can't run a P&L, then we are as good as being support, for the lack of a better word, rather than being a driver. Because a driver helps you navigate, a passenger can do backseat driving.
Thank you, Sahil.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I like to add on this, especially during the planning and budgeting exercise and so-called when we talk about the next financial fiscal year, I think more and more HR has started getting importance in terms of how do we design the plan, which is meeting the stakeholders and other shareholders' expectation, as well as how do we reward the employees by way of achieving it 100%. So therefore, while designing the plan, and I'm sure all of us has a salary component divided into two parts, which is a fixed and a variable component. And I'm not talking about incentive, which is definitely a different part for a sales organization. But for a variable, what does really goes into by achieving it 100% and exceeding it beyond 100%? And therefore, what mileage, what levers one should really communicate well, design well, that is where the HR really comes into picture. And traditionally, we have been designing that once in a year, communicating it, and many a times, till the ACR later or annual comp later comes to you or people, they really don't know how does it really damn thing calculated and what all thing has really gone into it. So with this technology advantage, now at least on a monthly basis, I have a dashboard which populates out that, boss, this is where your variable pay going to look like as of today, and therefore LE for next couple of months away, this is where your variable going to be.
In fact, Vijay, with the tools of technology, you can actually predict the variable that a person would be able to earn in the next few months. That's where technology can lead us, actually.
One is the prediction, second is the real data. I mean, now we are in already December end. Basis the 9 months performance, one can really calculate what is my percentage payout of variable pay. Because you know what is the parameter that are being defined in the variable pay plan, whether it is sales revenue or EBITDA or a market share, and month after month, and you have a dashboard. So the whole thing, I'd like to add on Sahil's point, where one is to really create that place for self as an HR, while designing those policies, designing those plans, and also how effectively we communicate, how transparently we communicate, and make it available on a mobile. Because laptop is no more a system that is
So
really working
I've got
now.
one round of questions, okay, and that is relating to what should be the capabilities of a high, top performing HR person.
Thank you for asking that question. I was really hoping that this question is asked. Because
You come prepared for that? I should tell the
not
question.
that. No, I was just thinking right now because usually what happens in multiple forums, HR comes on spot and there's always this question on whether HR is doing enough for the business, right? Right. And then obviously, as a subsequent question to this thought is what capabilities are required to do enough, right?
And I'll just ask the audience, you also please add a couple of points. In case these points are not covered by the audience, please stand up and tell us so that the entire audience benefits from this discussion we are having about what capabilities should HR have to navigate the future.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. So on capabilities, first thing is, and I generally believe in this, that being HR, you should know HR first, right? I know we do talk about knowing the business. We do talk about knowing the finances. We also talk about knowing sales. We talk about knowing technology. We talk about knowing law. Everything under the sun we talk about, right? After all, we all are human beings. We also have our limitations. There is limited what we can know. So first, build your foundation. We are HR. We need to know HR first. We are working here for our employees. We are working here for our people. That's our core. We should not forget that, right? Now, having said this, we are here to ensure that our business also grows. For that, we definitely need to know elements of business. We need to know finances. We can't be talking, something very different from what, the business guys are talking about. So that's the thing which we need to know. But don't forget the HR part. Second is technology is going to be the key enabler. Now that's something which we can't ignore. Someone was talking here, right? We have right now 2 lives. Each one of us have a very different life on social media. So we can't leave that aspect. So ensure that we all are updated with the latest technological trends. Now it can be very different in different organizations. In some organizations, it can be very simple. Power BI dashboard, that's sufficient. In certain contexts, you may be required to know what is blockchain, what is artificial intelligence. Even if you are a factory HR person, there are elements of machine learning which are coming and it's important for you to know, right? So understand the context and then understand what is important for you to know. That's what I'll say.
Very well said. Thank you. Roopa.
Well, I'm going to have a difference of opinion, obviously. So
Sure.
I'm sure these guys are going to beat me when we get outside. But I think the way that I look at this is the buck stops at support enablement. I wish HR also comes up with innovation if they want to be powerful for the future. I'd like to ask multiple people in this forum as well as on the dais, what have you innovated as HR, except for what is already out there? What is it that you've bought about? Where have you gone about, outperforming your competition, what you've managed to enable your employees? What have you thought like an HR person, like he said, doesn't have to be a CEO, but as a HR head, what is the innovation that you've bought about? Now that is when you'll be able to comply with whatever technology is going to come into work.
Fantastic. Good. Thank you. Sahil?
Okay, so I can actually go from A to Z and tell you all the competency, but I won't do that. I
you
won't
have-
do that.
you have 30 seconds to
Prasad is
answer.
killing me today, but I won't do that. I'll stick to only alphabet I and alphabet C. So 3 I's. The first I is intellect, pretty much to what you said. You have to have intellect. Second is integrity. And I think that's very, very core to any HR professional, right? You can't go around preaching if you're not doing it yourself. And the third I is independence. Many a times we've seen alignment to the chair, and I think HR needs to be independent. The 3 C's, very quickly, we spoke about collaboration, but I think more important than collaboration is courage. It takes a lot of courage to walk up to your CEO and say, I'm not going to let these people go, COVID, no COVID, I know the balance sheet, I know we have enough funds, we'll pay salary, we'll reduce 20%, but we won't let people go. And if the CEO asks you to leave, find a better way not to leave yourself, courage. And the third C, I think conviction. If we can have a lot more conviction in ourselves as what we do as a fraternity, I think we'll make for a great HR fraternity. 3 C's, 3 I's, but we can talk more.
Actually,
One more C to add here is let's not forget our customers, our employees are customer, and we need to care for them.
Yeah.
That's
And I think
important.
compassion is equally important, yeah.
Prasad, can I just, because I know you are very passionate about this purpose and means of HR. So you can answer that question through that model as
Thank you. I think, like I was saying, we should be focused on what purpose we want to look at. And the what purpose, purposes of all stakeholders. Purpose of the company could be growth, company could be, EBITDA margins, ESG and all. HR has to play a role to that. And the second is, if I got 10,000 people in the company, can I try and fulfill all the purpose of all the people? People say, no, it's not possible. I think it's possible for only HR to do meet the purpose of the employee and the stakeholders, including the corporate, by using means. Means could be anything, could be technology, non-technology, whatever. But if you can focus on the purpose for all the employees, and if my mantra is if you can get 10x from each employee, not from the productivity or squeezing work, but if they can grow, each of your employee in your company can grow 10x, I think the work of HR is done. All your balance sheets, top line, everything will get answered.
Fantastic. Yes, Vijay.
Yeah. In fact, while most of them are already covered, but I look at more from a capability of HR. I think we need to be little more active listener, because I think somewhere, because of the design of our HR is like we have open houses, we have so many conferences and all that keeps happening, but how do we really actively listen and try to understand the business issues that comes out from this conversation? Probably there one needs to put in little hard work to really get into the depth of and understanding what really goes behind that issue or problem. Second is we try to force feed one culture across the organization. I think over the period, I realized that each there are multiple homogeneous group that exist in the organization. Even if you look at the functions, the way we organize, the marketing function is all different on a cloud 9 vis-a-vis the commercial, IT, and so be it sales. So it is okay to have those culture. It's just that one is to define certain policies and SOPs around those homogeneous group, but of course one is to bind with the organization larger values, integrity and teamwork. Probably as an HR we need to allow that freedom and little tolerance to let that happen instead of really force fitting and making it that this is the way I should control the organization. Probably there we need to work on. And of course, like you already mentioned about the purpose, I feel HR now really start becoming a custodian of organization purpose for a long term, and that is how individual will start connecting because of different demographics of people coming in. Each one comes with a different purpose in which they look for what is it in return that the individual will get while working for our company. The moment we define that purpose sharper and with the help of course, the leadership, we communicate that well, we will have a better engagement by employees vis-a-vis what we always being about talking about policy, and that's the only framework one is to live in.
Thank you, Vijay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other, because, attended a conference, people will ask you, what did you learn? At least there's one significant takeaway that I've given you, or the panel I've given you, are competencies that HR people should have. Any addition to what the panel members have said? Any other thing that you feel should be added to the list of HR competencies? Nothing else? Yeah, please, madam. Before time, first time.
Hello, my name is Neha. I'm from the Mehta Group. So I think I'm audible. Thank you for all the inputs. I would like to add what my boss usually tells me, that an HR should talk the business language, and Neha, you must have the business mindset. So think as a CFO what he would want you to hire, think as a CTO, think as a CMO. So he keeps giving me all these examples. So I think just would like to add to the perspective that all of you shared. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Anyone else? Yes.
Bhagwat here. I just have one point that, why we always need to compare HR with any of the other functions. What one of the, a jury said that if we are very proud to be HR, right, why we should be, always compared with someone else? Are we not satisfied that, what we are doing, or are we not very happy that, the profession that we have chosen is not the right one or as lucrative or as, dignified as another one? So like, everything works in a framework. That's what we understand by any, business organization. So if I see a governance mechanism of a company, it needs all the functions, and that is a framework. Like a computer, there is a motherboard, there is a microprocessor, everything. Why do we compel the motherboard, which is just lying, to be a microprocessor?
So your question is that why compare?
Why compare? Because
Good point.
See, we are not dealing with numbers, but we are dealing with the person who is dealing with the numbers. What is wrong with that?
What's the question? I did not
I
get
think the question was, Doctor, why, if you're HR, we should be proud. Why are we trying to say we should be?
Okay.
Yeah, so if suppose the HR is, if I'm hiring, just hypothetical situation, if Mr. Rajappan, I'm hiring as my CEO, isn't there any contribution as a HR from my side to the organization? Because I'm hiring someone like, Rajappan, and how do we quantify that?
I'll see
so are we shying away with that quantification?
For the offer letter, I'll see him outside.
So are we shying away with the quantification?
Doctor, can I just respond to that?
We are just, not being very proud of what we are doing.
I think, sorry, what's your good name?
Bhagwat.
Doctor, I think we are not saying we are not proud. Please also understand the reality is what is happening. Today, research says 55% of the IT decisions are taken by non-IT. Okay? Which means, has IT lost importance? No. All of us start taking IT decisions because IT, everyone has to know. Technology, nobody argues. Similarly, HR functions, we are working towards, for example, autonomous hiring. We are almost reaching there where we don't require HR to do the hiring part, but set the systems for HR. Today, we have launched something called virtual payroll. We have eliminated payroll processing. So the bank person who used to approve the banks in large corporate bank or the state banks was very powerful. See, I approve the loans. That loan has been taken over, the role has been taken by technology. The question we are asking is, can we be the creator of those technology and processes, or we want to be the impacted one? We are not saying HR will always remain as far as human beings are there, but HR department may change gradually. And we need to be the creators of those tools and means to make it more powerful. So that is only take as a non-HR person.
Good. And that's a topic that we can debate a lot, so I'm not...
And I'll anyway take the offer letter outside when you give you. So.
Any other? Okay. You want to say something? Okay, fine. Great.
So I had one query. Normally they put the photos of panel members there. I don't see my photo there.
No, this... okay. Okay, great. So thank all the panel members. One of the senior HR person, when I met him when I was young, at that time I had a lot of hair and all that stuff. So he told me, I asked him, what's the role of HR? He told me 4 Gs. Okay. You need to get good people. You need to give the best. You need to grow. And when they don't perform and beyond a certain point, you need to let them go. So get, give, grow, and go. And even now when I think about it, whatever be the context, the core role of any leader, forget the HR person, will continue to be that in the organization. And, I really thank him for giving me this wisdom at some 20 years back. It still holds true. So to end, can you get back the presentation? I got one slide. I just want to end with something. It's gone? Okay. Prasad was very eager to see his face.
No, I was happy I've become a footballer, so that was...
Again it's gone.
Yeah. Great. So I wanted to end with a Sanskrit sloka. Okay. I like the language Sanskrit, and it says that Amantram Aksharam Nasti Nasti Moolam Anushodham Ayoga Purusha Nasti Yojaka Tratra Durlabha. There is not a single syllable from which a mantra cannot be made. Okay, there is no root from which a herb cannot be made. There is not a single person who is useless. But the challenge is getting a person who can do it, get this done. And I think leaders and HR people have the great opportunity for making every person a great resource, a great asset. On that note, thank you. God bless. Thank you, Penny.